Bud Light has lost yet again to the woke agenda and to woke marketing executives, specifically to Alyssa over here, Alyssa Heinerstein, and her woke marketing strategy involving trans activist Dylan Mulvaney, or should I say grifter Dylan Mulvaney. We'll get into how exactly that Bud Light lost as a corporation, and also we'll explain not just how they lost, but also how we can turn the tide and we can turn this loss into a win against the woke agenda, but we've got to do it right. We've got to learn from Bud Light's mistakes. So first of all, if you've been living under a bucket, if you don't know what's going on, check out my previous video. I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney and a corporate attorney. Actually, I was an in-house attorney. A lot of other folks, hey, they're excellent trial attorneys. They're great in trial and all that. I was not in the courtroom so much as in the boardroom. So this is my area of expertise. This is something that I am very familiar with, both practicing privately in a law firm and within corporations themselves as corporate counsel. So I've seen woke executives like Alyssa all the time, and I know exactly what's going on here. So what happened was Alyssa had this idea for equity and inclusion, and that involved putting up trans activist grifter Dylan Mulvaney in a very failed advertising campaign. I'll leave you to watch those ads for yourself. Obviously, lots of backlash followed, lots of people writing in, complaining, criticizing this. Tons of social media backlash, Donald Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, everybody from the right, even to people in the center, were like, this is kind of ridiculous. This is, kind of jumping the shark here. This is going way too far. And for Bud Light, a beer brand, to think this is going to sell beer, well, that's just ridiculous. So predictably, just like when Gillette shamed men, people are now boycotting Bud Light. And as part of that, there was fallback, and there has been pushback against this, and there has been consequences for the corporation. The first thing they did, and one of the first ways they lost, was they issued an apology. But when they issued an apology for this, they didn't actually apologize. It was a non-apology apology. And I'll read through it very briefly, but this is from the CEO, Brendan Whitworth, who there was recently a puff piece that was speaking about how Republican he was, and he's a card-carrying Republican. Well, only a rhino would write something like this. Let's see. As the CEO of a company founded in America's heartland more than 165 years ago, I am responsible for ensuring every consumer feels proud of the beer we brew. We're honored to be a part of the fabric of the country. Anheuser-Busch employs more than 18,000 people, and our independent distillers employ an additional 47,000 valued colleagues, so they don't even directly employ those folks. We have thousands of partners, millions of fans, and a proud history supporting our communities, military, first responders, sports fans, and hardworking Americans everywhere. Once again, real quick, they're sticking those buzzwords in there, right? They're saying, okay, what do conservatives like? They like community, they like military, first responders, sports, and hardworking Americans. That's conservatives, right? We're going to stick all those buzzwords in there. So they think that by putting those buzzwords in there, it's going to make you forget what happened. But here's what they say. We never intended to be part of a discussion that divides people. We are in the business of bringing together people over a beer. My time serving this country, so once again, putting in military service, trying to, pave over this, taught me the importance of accountability and the values upon which America was founded. Freedom, hard work, and respect for one another. Well, what part of what Dylan Mulvaney does stands for freedom, hard work, and respect for one another? In fact, what that agenda stands for is anti-freedom. They do not want freedom of speech. They do not want freedom of choice. They want you to say exactly what they tell you to say. They want you to say those pronouns, or you are a bigot. So nowhere in this apology here does it say anything close to even the word sorry. All it says is, I care deeply about this country, this company, and our brands and partners. Yes, of course you do. Of course you do. Those are your revenue streams. This country, the company, and the brand and the partners, that's your business. So yes, you do care about that. Of course you do, Brendan. Of course. Now, this non-apology was followed by something even more insulting, which was this ad here regarding the Clydesdale. So I'm just going to play a little bit of it, but it was a bunch of buzzwords and, of course, the iconic Clydesdales running through the American countryside, right? You know, going over here and showing up in front of Budweiser, showing how classic they are, you know, trotting out the old Clydesdale as if the horse is going to fix everything. It's kind of like as if the Coca-Cola bear, you know, was trotted out after they played the exact same thing. I mean, the question is, look, I mean, what are you trying to say? Is the horse transitioning now? What's going on? Right? But just a bunch of buzzwords and bringing out a horse is not going to fix the problem. It's a non-apology, and it's at its core, it's not getting back to admitting that what was said was actually wrong, was actually bad. Now, the second reason why they've been made to look absolutely fools and they've lost to Alyssa and her agenda is because, well, more of the leadership is being cut. So now you have Daniel Blake, who's the vice president, who's above Alyssa, right, who should have been approving this, who probably rubber stamped it, was like, that's great, you go, girl, you go there and get it. Yeah, so Daniel Blake, the VP for mainstream brands, he stepped back, he stepped down. And so now you have both Alyssa, who's on a leave of absence. We're going to talk about that. That's number 3. But for now, you have these people stepping down, taking leaves of absences, and other more experienced people stepping up or filling those roles. The question is, as a brand, where were those people at the top? Why were they not there in the beginning? Why were they conspicuously missing? Where were these people? Where were these veterans? Where were these based folks that allegedly exist, that supposedly exist in Bud Light? Where were they? They weren't there. They were missing. But this brings us to number 3. And by the way, if you like this type of content, guys, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, because the algorithm does not like it when I talk against the agenda. So let's go with number 3. So this is just getting into what Alyssa got out of this. So Alyssa Heinerschneid, she is taking a leave of absence. And this is where a lot of other YouTubers get this story wrong. A lot of YouTubers, they interpret this, and they've falsely interpreted this as her being fired. Let's be clear. Legally, a leave of absence is not termination. They're using this word specifically. I know this as corporate counsel. This word is very specific. Leave of absence does not mean termination. Let's be very clear. So a lot of other people, a lot of other content creators, even other lawyers, right? Other folks creating sort of based content are saying fired. They need to stop that because this is actually a loss. This is a big loss. This is not a win. It's a loss. Here's why. A leave of absence is covered under the FMLA, the Family Medical Leave Act. And this is a bit of speculation as to the reason, but assuming this leave of absence is specifically meant to mean a leave from work, assuming that there will be a return to work at some point, it probably is due to mental health. See, if you have a mental health incident, right, you have something that's not normal, that can be considered, mental health can be considered under the FMLA as a reason for leave. For example, this is an example from the Department of Labor. If you're unable to work due to anxiety, particularly if it's anxiety that occurred on the job and you're unable to perform your essential job functions, which I'm assuming Alyssa's going to say, she's going to say, I have such trauma from all these horrible, misogynist, hateful people on the internet, these transphobes, they've given me PTSD, and that indeed does qualify for FMLA. So she's taking 12 weeks off at a minimum. So she's allowed. Now her company can grant her more. And furthermore, while the FMLA requires unpaid leave, the company can choose to pay her. And in this situation, I bet, I don't have proof of this, this is my speculation, but I bet that at least part of it is going to be paid for. I bet that Bud Light is paying Alyssa for the pleasure of her not working with them anymore. And I also think there may be a settlement with Alyssa to get her to leave. Why do I think this? Because I think if they fired her, they might have a lawsuit. They might have a sexual discrimination lawsuit, some other form of lawsuit brought by a woman like Alyssa. This is why the woke are horrible to work with, because they won't hesitate to turn everything against you when they fail. They'll blame the company. They'll blame other people. They'll blame their male boss before they take accountability. And that's why this is a loss for Bud Light. This is not yet a win. The way this turns into a win, the way that all of this is shown to be absolutely unacceptable, is by staying on the boycott. The only way this is going to work is if this brand is continuously boycotted into the future until there is at least a sincere and severe apology, a direct refutation of this specific message. I see no reason to end it if we want to have a win, a true win against this corporation. So far, the agenda, the woke agenda, has won. But in the long term, if we stick with it, we can take that W. So don't celebrate too often. And if you want more takes like this, make sure you like this video,